This lesson is designed to give you an opportunity to explore creating and using and formatting tables within Google Docs. I love tables. I love using tables in Google Docs, as you probably could tell. So we're just going to walk through some of the things that you can experiment with. Make sure you've read the lesson requirements so that you know exactly what you need to do on this document um, to earn for credit. All right, so I'm going to just title this. I'm going to call this a project and sheet or document. I'm not using an LMS. This is probably a really easy way to collect links to students' work so that you can either grade from it or you can kind of check on their progress, whatever. So feel free to, use those skills that you've learned in other projects to make this look really nice and be useful, which is the most important. Okay, I'm going to insert a table. I'm going to just start with like a 3x2 just to get started here. And then I'll show you adding in rows, adding in columns as you need them. So by default, it's evenly distributed, and I'll be showing you how to change those. So the row, I'm going to, first of all, identify what type of information I want the student to give me. So I want their first name and last name. All right. Then I want the link to the project. And then I'm going to have a status column. How are they doing? Where are they in the whole process? Now, depending on the grade level and your students, you can pre-populate all the names. If you have a list of them out of another program, you can paste them in there. If you do paste with format without formatting it so that it will paste into a different row. The nice thing about if you pre-populate, you can save this before students turn in things and reuse this list over and over again. But if your students are old, at an age where they can just find an empty row and type in like you did, then that saves you a step. So anyway, I'm just going to start with Mary Clark into the project. So I have another document open. I'm just going to grab the link. It's set for Clark County School District. Decide what rights you want that person to give you, and then copy the link. And then they can just paste the link in. So you can also show them hyperlinking if you would prefer that they do that. But if it's a purpose of just being able to access the document, just pasting the link in is fine. Now for status, I'm going to use those drop-down menus. I am so entranced with drop-down menus. So I'm going to create my own. There is a project status here, but let me see. So I'm going to edit it. So the default is not started, which will work. But I'm going to change this up just a little bit to just say NA. I saw this tip or you can type in status. This is a tip on a website to show that they would have to change it so they were in there changing their status. Otherwise, if it says not started, then did they select not started, or is that just the default first answer there? So I like that. So this says blocked. I might change this to need help. In progress completed. And those are all good. In progress, you could be more, ask for more information and say something like, I'm at step 1 in the process. I'm going to add a new option here. I'm at step 2, if you want to get a little bit more granular. And then the next option could be completed or ready for review, whatever. And then they have, obviously the colors, and feel free to experiment with those. I'm going to save that. Okay. Now, to add another row, I can simply, since I'm in the last column, last row, use the tab key and I'll add another row. And the nice thing is it's going to copy that drop down menu for me. So that's really nice. And I can continue adding rows doing that. Or I can also use this shortcut here, which is insert a row below. So anyway, several different ways to insert rows. Now, if I want a row ahead of this, so maybe I want to add some information above here that I want to be part of my table, I can right click and say insert a row above. I can also go to Format, Table, Insert Row Above. So right clicking and using that menu, Format, Table are the same thing. Oops, I did that backwards. It said well, let me just show you how to delete the row. I didn't want it below it. I wanted it above it. So, okay. So part of the requirements is to do merge cells. So I want all three of these cells to be just one big cell. So I'm going to select all three of them by clicking and dragging. And then I'm either going to use the Format Table menu and merge the cells, or right click and merge cells. So now I have one cell that spans across the three columns. So I might add in directions, whatever you want to add in here. All right, so I have rows, columns. Now I'm ready to look at table properties to see how I can modify this table and make it pop. So this information here is the information for each column. So I want that to stand out. So I want to modify the table properties. And again, I can right click or I can use this menu. And there's all sorts of things that you can do here, and I encourage you to explore them. But I'm going to go to the one that says color. So I have table border and I have cell background. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the cell background color to this green. All right. And then I'm going to look at the table border. Those are the lines. And maybe I don't want that. It's by default, it's a black. Or maybe I want it a little softer, like a gray. And by default, it's 1 point. And I might want those to be a little thicker. And so I can change it to 3 points. Okay, just very simple. Now, I've used tables in footers for page numbers and to reflect what the maybe revision date, excuse me, is on a document. So in that case, I don't want the borders to show. So I've got a couple options. I can change the borders to white. So white on white, it won't show up. If I have a page background color, of course, it will. The other option is to change the point size to 0. So 0 points, it's not going to show the border. So there's a couple different ways of removing that border if you don't want it in there. Okay, so this top one here, I'm going to also change the cell background color, and I'm going to choose a darker green here. Now, I did this on purpose because that's a very dark color and the black text on it is not very readable. The number one thing you want to make sure is that things that you create for students are very readable. So because I chose a very dark background, I'm going to change the font color to something that's very light. So that's not white, it's a light gray, but boy, does that pop. I can really read that now. So keep that in mind. Readability is really important. I may also want these to pop a little bit more by just changing the the size of those so that they stand out a little bit more. Okay, so I've got a really good start here. You can insert an image into any of these cells. I'm going to do one up here on the top just to show you. You have to be comfortable with images and be willing to do that, but you've had a chance to do that, so you'll be fine. So project, I typed in clip art project. So here's an image of students working together. And down here, I'm going to insert it. Now, of course, it's going to come in larger than what I want. I'm going to grab from the corners. I want it proportional. That's my thing. And then I may want it, I can leave it inline if I want to, or I may want to wrap it so that I can control where it fits in the document. It does impact where this directions look, so you just have to play around with those things until you get it to a point where you like it. All right, so you can add images to cells. So we've merged cells, we've added rows, etc. If you need to delete a row for whatever reason, you can right click and you can either delete a row, delete a column. If you try and delete a column where there's a merged row above it, it won't allow you to do that. So there's something here called pen header. And so let's look at that. If you have a document that's going to go across pages, it's nice to have the pen, that header information show up on the next page. So let me go ahead and I'm going to use a tab key and just quickly go down. Okay, so I've got directions on the second page also. That's really helpful. Now, but I have kind of two headers, so I'm going to right click here again, and I'm going to pin the header to this row. So I want both of those rows to show up on each page. So I really like that. This is fairly new to tables, but I think it's so helpful if you have a table that goes across multiple pages. There is an option to sort. So if you have asked for students to put in their first and last names, you can do a sort. If you do it, sort ascending, sort descending, and all the information will go with them. So that might be an argument for asking for the first name in one column, the last name in the second column. Now this status column doesn't need to be that big. So I'm going to click and drag here. My cursor changes into that cross pattern and just change the column width. So it's just that easy to change it. You can actually change the row height also if you want to. Those things also can be found over here. So we pinned some header rows, allow row to overflow across pages. That means if you're down here, you're allowing the information to go to the second page. So you can play with turning that on or off. Column information, and then alignment. So, but the main ones I want you to concentrate on are the color options that you have, and then maybe pinning the rows and that kind of thing. All right, so we've merged, we've changed background color, we've changed the border color and size, we added an image to the cell. So really, you're on your way to being an expert on using tables in Google Docs. It's just that easy. I look forward to reviewing your projects, and there are several examples on the lesson page. If you don't have an idea, feel free to review those. But I'm hoping you'll find something that you can create that would be beneficial to you and your students. Reach out if you have any questions.